Hello there, my name's Scott. Today I'm going to be doing a review on the drip bodies which I received from www.vapeforme.de. Before I start, I must point out I did receive them free of charge for the purpose of conducting a review. In my opinion, the product's made true on its nectar as always. Okay, let's go straight ahead and show them in a bit more detail. Okay, so the drip body is for those people who like to do what's known as direct dripping. And this is where you have a regular sort of atomizer, you take the mouthpiece off, get your bottle of e-liquid, drip a few drops of juice directly onto the coil, put your mouthpiece back on and then have a bit of a vape. Now the issues with direct dripping is that you have to do it on a very regular basis, otherwise you're going to start getting lots of dry hits. And if you happen to add too much e-liquid, then there's a very good chance it's going to start pouring out the bottom of the atomizer and obviously going down the side of your nice shiny new mod. And this is where the drip bodies come into play. These will hold a regular 510 atomizer or a 306 or i06 atomizer with a drip tip attached. And they allow you to add more e-liquid at a time, which means you obviously have to direct drip less often. Plus they eliminate any issues with juice seeping out the bottom of the atomizer and going down whatever device you're using. These are available in either stainless steel or titanium. These two here are the stainless steel and this one is the titanium, and the only way to sort of really tell them apart is that the titanium is a slightly darker colour plus a lot lighter. Also available in two different sizes. You have the sort of standard size here and you have its bigger brother. Now even though there is quite a considerable difference in size and capacity, the website still says that they both hold around the same amount of e-liquid, which is 1 milliliter for each. Now when you get these, they're going to sort of come semi-assembled. You're going to get a little bag of parts here. So this one in the middle is the stainless steel version. I've not actually used this one at all yet, so I'm going to show you how to get it all set up. Right, so for this example, I'm going to show you how to set up one of the standard size drip bodies. Now if you happen to get the larger version, the process is pretty much identical. And the only sort of real differences between the large version and the standard size one is that the mouthpiece is slightly different. It's got an additional sort of disc going around the base, and it also has an extra sort of top cap that gets screwed on over the mouthpiece and then screws into the main body. Okay, so the drip body is basically made up of these 6 parts here. You have the base section, and this is where you're going to screw your atomizer into, and this has its own separate 510 atomizer connection, so that means you can use it on any device that also has a 510 threading. Then have the main body, then the mouthpiece, and then a central positive connection pin, and then these little sort of rubber grommet and a plastic insulator. Right, so the first thing you need to do is take this little small rubber grommet and just drop it inside that hole. And then just use something like a screwdriver, just sort of push it down gently into place. Next step is to take the small centre pin and insert the thinnest end in first, and just push that down. Now for the next step, you need to take the small plastic insulator and push it over the top of that central pin. Now the slight issue with that is as you start to push the insulator on, it will start pushing the centre pin back up. So the easiest way to do this, I found, was to just attach an atomizer. That will keep this centre pin in place. You can just take the insulator and slide it on. Right, so now the little base section has been all set up, you can just screw that into whatever device you're going to be using. So I'm using my Mini Pro Vari here. And then you can take the atomizer and screw that into place. Now you don't need to screw it up too tight. As soon as you can feel a bit of resistance, that's your cue to stop. Now hopefully you can see the 2 small holes are still visible on the base of the atomizer. And this means that when you direct drip in, some of the juice is actually going to start leaking out through those 2 little holes. But rather than going down the side of your device, it'll actually get trapped by the tank. And then from there onwards, each time you inhale, you'll actually be sucking a bit of that juice back into the atomizer and basically making it like a bottom feeding device. So once the atomizer's been attached, you can then take the like the tank body and screw that into place. Hopefully you can see just how nice and thick and chunky the threads are. And it is a very nicely machined little device or gadget, not too sure we'd actually call it, to be quite honest. And it doesn't use any O-rings either. There's no O-rings going around the base at all now. But even though it hasn't got any O-rings, I've still not experienced any leaks whatsoever. Okay, so you just need to take the tank body, slide it over the top and screw it up. And then to finish off, you just got to take the mouthpiece and screw that into the top of the tank. Now only screw it up until you can feel a bit of a resistance. As soon as you feel a bit of resistance, that lets you know you've made contact with the top of the atomizer. That's about right there. Now obviously you can't just use the mouthpiece on its own, but if you want to use your own 510 drip tip, you can whack one into the top there. However, I found that out of my drip tips, some of them were not exactly held too snugly, so you may have to go through your collection to find one that's a really nice tight fit. Okay, so that is the drip body. Let's go ahead and see what it vapes like. Okay, so that was the drip body, and what I'll do now is go ahead and show you in action. So I'm going to be using a 1.5 ohm 510 atomizer inside the drip body on my Mini Pro Varia, which is currently set at 3.8 volts. And I'm going to be using some ultra pure tobacco flavoured e-liquid. It's 24 milligram strength, and this is actually a VG based e-liquid. Now I've already got quite a few drops in there, and I probably could get through the rest of the review without having to bother doing this, but I will do it for demonstration purposes. So I'm going to add a few more drops now. One thing I forgot to mention actually in the close-up shots is that the mouthpiece on here is a very nice and sort of wide mouthpiece, so you can sort of drip quite easily without it sort of you know, clinging to the sides or accidentally sort of missing basically. So like I said, I've already got quite a bit of juice in here, but I'll add another 3 or 4 drops. And you can, you know, drip quite a fair old bit in there. And like I said, I've not experienced any leaks whatsoever, even when I have sort of completely overfilled it. But I find if you do add sort of too much, then you will find you're just going to get a lot of gurgling where like the juice is sort of built up around those little air holes in the base of the atomizer, and so you're just sort of constantly sucking juice through it, and so the atomizer's going to be sort of always sort of flooded basically. So you do have to sort of play about with it a little bit to try and find exactly how much juice you can add. But if you do sort of flood it, just keep on vaping and vaping. Eventually, sort of burn off the excess, and then or vaporize off the excess, and then that's it. You should be good to go again. So this is the drip body. Now, not going to really sort of talk about vapour reduction and flavour and throw it, because at the end of the day it's just a low resistance 510 atomizer in there. It's got, and the actual drip body doesn't play any part on its sort of performance whatsoever. So the actual amount of vapour you're going to get, the flavour, the throw hit, is going to be more down to your own sort of personal setup with regards to what sort of resistance your atomizer is, what sort of atomizer you're actually using, what sort of device, whether you're using voltage or wattage, where you got it set to, etc, etc. But no, with the setup I've got here, getting plenty of vapour though. I don't know if you can hear it, like at the moment it's sounding sort of quite gurgly, and it's just sort of right on the cusp of being sort of too much juice in there. Like I said, it already had quite a bit of juice in there before I added those other sort of a few drops. Still perfectly vapourable, and it's just that, you know, you have to sort of suck on it a little bit slowly, so to speak. And you know, when it's like that, and then like eventually the excess will sort of get vaporised off, and then you can just sort of vapour as normal until you start noticing like the flavours start to diminish, and that's your cue to then sort of obviously get your juice bottle out and start adding a few more drops in there. And you can add like a fair amount, but like I said, you do need to sort of experiment a little bit to find out exactly how much you can add in any one sort of go. And it's definitely a lot better than just using like a 510 atomizer on its own, because I find that you're taking the mouthpiece off, you're getting your bottle of e-liquid, you're adding sort of 4 or 5 drops. You can't add too much because otherwise it does start to sort of leak out the base. You put your mouthpiece back on, you have about 5 or 6 drags, and that's it. You've got to repeat the whole process again. At least with things like the drip body, you can add a bit more juice, which means you can vape for a little bit longer before having to sort of do it again. Plus, if you do happen to add too much, then it gets collected into the tank rather than sort of pissing out all over the side. So it's definitely an improvement for direct drippers over just using a regular sort of atomizer on its own. One thing quite surprised about though was that no O-rings, and I wasn't expecting it to sort of start seeping out, not from the atomizer connection bit, because that's quite sealed once you've got the little grommet and that in there, but from where the actual base connects to the tank, there's no O-ring there, so I was expecting excess juice to eventually start making its way out, but I've not had any of that whatsoever. I've had these 2 or 3 weeks, something like that now, and like I said, I'm not much of a direct dripper, but when I've been sort of testing out new flavours, they've been having a good old session, and I've not had any sort of leakage problems from them whatsoever. So even though there's no O-rings there, like I said, no problems with leaks at all. In terms of like the build quality, very nicely machined. All the threads are very nice and smooth. Nice big sort of thick chunky threads on it as well. There's not a massive amount else I can really sort of tell you about them. If you like direct dripping, then obviously they're right up your street. If you don't like direct dripping, don't bother getting one. It's as simple as that really. What else can I say? Not a lot else. So if you fancy trying one of these out for yourself, go along to www.vapeforme.de. Thank you very much for watching. Also come along and visit my website at www.e-cig-reviews.com. That's e-cig-reviews.com. Cheers guys, happy vaping, see you later.